Welcome to Coffee and the Bull.
Hey guys, Mike with Coffee and the Bull. We want to say thank y'all for taking a moment and watching this episode. So today we're going to be talking about the devil you know. We're just going to jump right into it. We're going to probably talk about some topics that might you might agree with, you might disagree with, but it's going to be something that's quite sensitive to a lot of guys.
Right.
Where it's what we're going through. It's unfortunately some of the bad advice that we get given. And as you struggle through life and as you trudge on and you get up every morning, you go to work, and the alarm clock goes off, and you answer it. You answer that alarm clock cursing, that it's going off, and if you just get 20, 30 more minutes worth of sleep, maybe everything will be better. But it's time to go do guy stuff. It's time to get up, go do work, and get that money. For lack of a better, or get that bread, as some of the guys call it. But it's one of the things we notice. As you go through life, you start having relationship. I don't care whose relationship it is. You go through issues where you just don't like each other.
Yep.
And that's just nature of the beast. Whether it's a successful marriage, for 50 years, I promise you that person can go to a time in their marriage where they did not like the person. Not that they hated them, they just didn't like the person who they were sharing the house with. Right. And it's you got highs and lows in every relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the things where you've got to learn to navigate that, and you hear it a lot, that hey, it's cheaper to stay with her,
cheaper to keep her,
right, and it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't, and that transitions into a lot of guys stay in relationships for the wrong reasons, or they take and they stay in jobs that they shouldn't be staying with or staying at, that they could be so much better somewhere else. But we're going to explore this from a different avenue, because I think a lot of the times that is just kind of a generic phrase that's tossed out to people,
the Band-Aid,
and it's not the best advice,
yeah,
or it could be the right advice, but it's given in the wrong manner, and it's received in the wrong manner. I think what you run into a lot of guys who and focusing on the relationship aspect of things. Guys take and they'll stay in a relationship and they do a lot of things they don't really want to do. And I think what happens is between exhaustion and just everything, you get stuck being the provider. Hey, the truck's not working. You got to figure out how to get it to work. You're too broke to afford a mechanic. And your mechanic friends, they stopped answering the phone because they're tired of doing free work. And I understand that.
Don't worry,
and so
I'll still answer for you.
Right. Or you take and I know one of the points of contention at my house now is the water well goes out. And I'm
so
expected
damn tired of your water well.
Right, I'm expected to know how to fix it. I'm like, I'm not a water well expert. I've never worked on this before, but but between YouTube and everything else, I'm going to have to try to find a way to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so you run into having to focus on being the provider all the time, that you really start losing the connection you have with the people inside your house, whether it be your kids, your wife. For the women who do it, it's losing that connection with your husband.
Right.
But again, we're guys, so we're going to focus on the guy aspect.
They become the point of contention because they're constantly coming at you with a problem.
Right.
And you get to a point where you're at your wits' end, where you're like, dude, if I have to come up with another problem, and it reminds me of my dryer. And I know that sounds funny because you're like, what the hell's a dryer come into this? And my ex-wife used to complain about this dryer, and I replaced the computer in it. I replaced the heating element in it, and finally I had gotten a decent paycheck at a job, and I went in there, man. I grabbed this dryer, and when I tell you I had Hulk anger strength, I grabbed the dryer, yanked it out, threw it in the backyard. I shot it 9 times. I shot the dryer 9 times. My anger capped out, and I smoked the dryer in the backyard. And she came out and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I ventilated the dryer." And then I went and bought a new dryer because I was that angry with it.
Well, I think what you run into, you get so frustrated because it's everywhere you turn, it's a problem.
Right.
that's not the only thing they bring up. I will bring it,
Right.
but that's where your focus becomes, because it's
Because
like,
it's
hey,
negative.
this is the value that
Right.
this is obviously how they view you is the solver of problems,
Right.
not and so in your mind you stop viewing yourself as being the dad or the husband,
Right.
and hey, I'm just a person who fixes everything, which is what I find funny is. The cup says, when all else fails, call dad.
Right.
And that's what everybody does, and I do it myself. Don't get me wrong. There's been times in my life where, hey, I don't know what to do, so I call my dad. And that might be the only conversation we have on the phone for weeks, months,
Right.
And that's just what happens. But as a dad or as a husband, what we do is we see our value in that, right?
Right. Well, that's where you should
And-
see your value decrease.
Right, and so when that's all you see yourself as, that's when you start not valuing yourself.
Right.
And so you're like, all right, I guess I'm the one I'm responsible for keeping lights on in the house, or I'm
Right.
responsible for changing oil in the car. Or for me, it's if I hop in my wife's car, I can almost bet with scientific accuracy there's not more than a eighth of a tank of gas.
Right.
In that
I have
thing.
enough to get
Like
to the gas
the worst
station.
thing they've ever done in automobile advancements has been put that number on the thing that tells you how many miles to empty.
Right.
Because if she doesn't test that, right off the bat she's going to test it, and it drives me up a wall because I don't see how you live like that.
Right.
But all joking aside, is you start seeing yourself as, hey, I'm the one responsible for, when something breaks, I've got to fix
Right.
it. Or when she has an idea, oh, let's change this, let's knock this wall out, or let's do this. I'm like, I guess I'm adding that to the list of stuff
Right.
to do.
Well, you get to a point where you're like, everybody brings the problem to me. Where do I bring my problem?
Right. Well, and it turns into you take, and when you see that's all you see yourself as being is the focus of the solver of problems. You're like, I could leave here. I could leave this family, and they can find somebody to do this. They obviously don't, they don't laugh at my jokes anymore because you tell dad jokes or whatever.
Right,
Right.
right.
And they've heard every story that you could possibly tell. So you get this misconception, and I want to stress it is a misconception.
Yep.
That's all you are to them, and so if you were not there, then they could live life without you, because YouTube can solve most of the problems, or you can call
Right.
a handyman to fix most of the stuff. And so you start devaluing yourself, and it doesn't take long before you going down that road. You're like, we've had this conversation that if you change the camera lens
Yeah.
on how you view everything, the devil is the one that's in your brain.
Right.
It's not oh, I'm going to stay with my wife because, hey, it's cheaper to keep her, and she may be crazy, but the next one might be even crazier.
Oh, yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
we're not saying stay in a relationship that you don't see, that you don't feel important in. We're saying you are important, and you've got to change how you view what you're bringing to the table.
Right.
And I think that's why guys do a lot of things. We had the conversation. We were talking about a TikTok video, and it's the guys complaining about going to a pumpkin patch. It's October. Everybody's going to pumpkin patches. And I agree with him 100%. I think a pumpkin patch, I hope they all catch fire. And if you get your financial
Little
stability
aggressive. Little aggressive.
from a pumpkin patch, it's been a long time coming. You've
Right,
been riding a gravy
right.
train. It's time for it to end, because I think it's the dumbest thing. It's not fun. Nobody enjoys it.
They're not. And there's bugs everywhere. I'm tripping on little kids everywhere, and I'm stepping in
Right.
pumpkin goo from some jackass that smashed the pumpkin.
Right.
No, I'm
and,
with you.
and on top of that, I'm now paying, like, we went to a pumpkin patch, and you paid, I think it was $10 for parking to park in the field. It's not like I've got a
Right,
parking garage
right.
or whatever. I'm parking
I
in a
didn't valet this
field
shit.
that somebody's cows were in a
Right.
week prior. So you got that going on, and then you walk through line, and you got to pay for everybody's ticket to go in, and and when you finally do get in, it's not exciting. It's not like you walk in Six Flags and
Because
everything's always
they don't open it until after all the schools have come
Right.
through it. So you're getting whatever's left over
Right.
if your kid didn't go on the field
Right.
trip. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. And by the end of it, you've spent what, 60, 70 bucks?
Right, $60 or $70 for a pumpkin that I go to the store and get for $6.
Right.
But also now I've given up my day where, hey, I could be fishing, I could be just
Napping.
chilling out. Hey, a little nap goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
Or some guys, hey, I didn't take overtime. You know,
Right.
we got to find a way to make this energy bill that's been skyrocketing over the last 3
Right.
years.
Right.
We got to try to find a way to make that sucker. But instead, I took the morning off to come do this crap. You know,
Right.
and it turns over at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The kids are all fussy. You and your wife are mad at each other because
Right.
you yelled at the kid too hard, or she yelled at him too
Yeah.
hard, or whatever.
And you
it
know
is.
you
So
brought lunch, but you got to buy McDonald's on the way
right,
home.
and so you're just frustrated. And it's not that either one of you did anything wrong. It's just pumpkin patches suck, man.
Right.
You know,
most of the field trips suck. Let's just keep it real.
You know, you do this, and you do this as a dad, and
So before he goes in this, because I know where he's going to go with this, but this is where our dad brain mentality is at. So for you wives and significant others that are looking at your husband through these events, and you're going, why are you so grumpy? Why are you so angry? This is every thought that is cycling through that man's brain.
right.
But in that, and this is where Mike's about to go down, I feel it, as dads or as men in general, whether you're the uncle stepping in or whatnot, this is the avenue of change that lens, and that's what Mike's about
Because
to cover.
you change that, you know, if you change that lens, you realize, hey, they wanted you there,
Right.
you know, and you know your wife wanted you there, or significant other, whatever, you know. I've got to remind myself that my wife didn't marry a machine, right? She married my dumbass, you know, and it wasn't, you know, and that's the truth. You know, she
It
didn't
is.
marry
It
somebody
is.
who is never any fun, who doesn't, you know,
Right.
who does everything, you know, statistically, if we buy this, and you know, it's a
Right,
better route.
right.
You know, no, I've bought some dumb stuff. If you think I'm joking, I had to get a car
Yep.
because my truck flooded in Hurricane Isaac. In
I've heard this
2012.
car story so many
And
times.
for some reason, in my college I had a college degree. Nice little office job or whatever. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy a 1981 Camaro.
Right,
And because my bank
right.
account was smaller than my shoe size, I took and I had to buy one that needed a lot of work, you know, but pretty, they're so easy to work on. It's not that hard.
Right.
Everything broke on that car. Like I replaced everything, and then something else would break. It's like the car was allergic to the road, you know.
Right.
And so it was, you know, that's been, you know, we refer to that where, hey, sometimes you got to make dumb decisions, you know, because it's life, you know.
Yeah.
She married somebody who's honestly kind of dumb. You know, I do a lot of dumb things, but that's part of life. You know, she didn't marry a calculator or whatever. She didn't marry somebody who's wants to always be worried about what's coming in or out. You got to live life. You got to be happy. You got to tell the jokes. You
Right.
got to do the dumb thing that makes her smile. You know, like one of the things we bought a couple weeks ago, we bought a ferret. All right, and I want to stress, and my wife knows this. I hate ferrets.
Right, no,
I
you
can't
did not
stand
want
them.
that thing.
For years, she's always that was her childhood pet that she enjoyed growing up with,
Right.
and I don't like them. I think they stink. They've been deodorized or whatever. I think they stink. You know, and they have a musk about them. They're weird. When they look at you with them little black beady eyes, you're like, what? Why did
why
God
are you
create
looking
you?
at
Like
me
you're
like
not.
that?
You don't do anything that any other animal can't
Look
do.
at mongoose,
Like I
they're
don't understand
worthless.
why. Right. It's like a lazy mongoose. Honestly, they don't do anything. Like I've got to feed them. I've got, you know, they don't catch bugs or anything like that. But I did that because it makes her happy,
Right.
and it makes my son happy. You know, like he's been chasing this thing. I don't know how supposedly ferrets sleep 18 hours a day. Not if my kid's at home,
Right.
because he's chasing that sucker everywhere. Like it's not getting a moment of downtime. But that's part of the things where it was expensive. It cost money. It's not bringing any benefit to the table other than laughter. But that's part of it. That's part of life,
Right.
you know. And for me, for years, she wanted a ferret. And I was like, I'm not doing a ferret. They're stupid. At least dogs, you know, somebody knocks on the door, the dog will bark and scare him away or whatever.
Not your dog.
You know, not my dog.
Yes.
But you know, I had to change the lens that I was looking through and see that, hey, there's more of an element that I bring to this family
Right.
than just a provider. You know, and I want to stress, my wife makes more money than I do. So it's not that, you know, I'm the breadwinner and, you know, whatever. But I still look at my life as being a provider. Like I go to work and I make sure that, hey, if there's an issue, it's, you know, for lack of a better term, like Vanilla Ice, if there's a problem, you all solve it, you know.
Right.
I'll find a way to fix whatever's going
I
on.
want you to know it's taken 11 episodes for that to come out, and I've been waiting. Like it's been in
So-
my head this whole time.
But it's one of the things where I had to change the lens at how I viewed everything.
Right.
You know, because I caught myself in a slump where I was like, I don't want to go do all this crap. I have so much other stuff to do, and every time we get a day off or a weekend off or whatever, she always wants to go. Whether it be the farmers market or go do this or go do that, or we got to do this family function. I don't even like that family member or whatever.
Right.
Like you always have all this stuff going on, and you're like, I just wanted a day off. I want to sit at the house and not do anything. If I don't want to put on pants, don't make me put on pants.
Right.
But there's things that got to be done, and they want to enjoy life with you because it's too easy to sit back and just let it go on, and then you complain, man, I wish back if I could be younger again, I'd do this or that. No, you wouldn't, because you had the opportunity, you didn't do it.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things where if you change how you view everything, you'll realize there's more of a value there.
Yeah. And it's a step-by-step process. It's not a overnight. You wake up and you change your rose-colored lenses. I can tell you, it took me 4 years in a gun shop before I realized that I needed to make a change. And not to go into the darks and the specifics of it, obviously I've covered it before. My ex-wife was a horrible adulterer. It is what it is, and first and foremost, it was before we were ever married. Mm-hmm. The cheating had started, and I had a devalue in myself. I was going through the turmoils of I just got out of the military, trying to find my purpose in life and see where I fell into how I was supposed to mend into society and become a productive member, and keep giving back. And we didn't have kids at the time. I had 2 kids up in Oregon that I was still trying to salvage my relationship with. And she ended up pregnant with our son, and so we got married. And, and I don't know if you want to call it, blind hope or whatever it was, but I had a belief that she would change or something would happen and there would be a difference. And everybody always said, it's not cheaper to keep her or it's cheaper to keep her or whatever it was. And it took 4 years and hitting rock bottom, mm-hmm. Taking a gunshot at work, and the final straw that broke the camel's back, the final realization that, one, having you make me come over and hang out and having the presence of somebody else to realize that I'm not alone. It's not a failure because I failed. But it took me going through that over a very long period to say, I have value, and this is not adding value. Mm-hmm. This is taking away value. And it's one of the reasons that I get along with you so well is that we are at different points in our life where you have a successful marriage that took work and it took effort and it took you realizing at different points that you need to reevaluate and relook at not just yourself but the circumstances and everything else. And it's a testament to those that are watching that sometimes there are battles that are worth fighting and getting through it for the common goal of staying together, and sometimes you've got to see your value and realize that you're worth more than the struggles and the hardships and the heartaches that you're going through. Because if you don't, you're gonna find yourself at the bottom end of the giant tub full of water and a toaster in your hands. You're gonna get to that point where you're like, I can't win. And if you don't take the time now, if you're in that spot, to find your value and say, and take an honest look and an evaluation of your circumstances and where you're standing at, and say, I either need to adjust myself and the way I'm doing things, or I need to walk away from this situation because it's not good for me. This situation is going to continuously affect me emotionally, financially, as a father. One of my biggest drives for my divorce, outside of the betrayal and the trust that was diminished, was I know it's affecting my relationship with my children. Mm-hmm. And I will not allow...
They're going to pick up on it.
Right. Oh, 110%. And I won't allow my children to see me diminish because of someone else. Because I don't want them to view me as weak
Right.
And by weak, I don't mean emotionally upset or hurt, because I honestly believe that's probably the healthiest thing that I can show them is that life's going to kick you, and you can now. It's okay to cry right now. It's okay to hurt right now, but tomorrow you got to start over, and you've got to pick yourself up, and you've got to move forward. And we as men, we have been trained through society that suck it up and deal with it. Keep moving, keep going, and we've got to understand we've got to take time to go to the doctor. We've got to take time to address ourselves and our mental health and our relationships with, your God, your kids, your families, and all of that. And you got to mend those fences before you get to a point where you don't see the value in yourself anymore.
It's too easy to get miserable.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I remember my brother-in-law was, I think it's, what's the infantrymen in the Army go to in Georgia, the Fort Basic.
School of Infantry?
No,
Fort Benning?
Fort Benning.
Yep.
We went to Fort Benning
I think they
because
renamed it.
he was graduating or
Right.
or whatever. And I remember I was mad to begin with because we took her car. It's better on gas or whatever, but
Right.
you don't have the room. I had a decent truck or whatever, plenty of room in it or what, So I was like, whatever, we'll take her car. It's stupid, It doesn't have tinted windows or whatever, so it's just fish bowling, getting
Right.
sunburnt and everything the whole way, all the way to Fort Benning. And I think that's honestly probably Fort Benning has got to be the place that is hotter than everywhere else. Like Louisiana gets hot, but that place is hot,
Fort Benning, Georgia,
And
is something else.
and so I remember we showed up there, and it was like the air conditioning just wasn't catching in the car.
Right,
So I'm like,
right.
the whole time, I'm like, of course, it's going to be on a
Right.
road trip. We're 8.5 hours away from the house.
Right.
And the air conditioning goes out in the car. So as we pull up, all the windows are down because the air conditioning's not keeping up. You just got sweat billowing. And I sweat like a fat guy at a buffet, man. Like I'm about business
do.
when it comes. And so, I'm sitting there, I'm miserable, sitting in ball suit. And it's don't get me wrong. I was excited. I was happy for my brother-in-law, but at the same time, I was like, why did I even come to this? Why didn't I just stay my happy butt at home? My brother-in-law doesn't care that I'm here or whatever.
Right.
And I remember I was like, I could have just let them enjoy this misery by themselves.
Right.
And then to top it off, we go to leave, and my wife and my mother-in-law had this bright idea. Hey, since we're in Georgia, it's only an hour and a half away, out of the way. We can go get some peaches. There's this place that has wonderful peaches. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, we don't eat peaches. Like, we don't eat that many peaches.
Right.
On top of that, does the store in Louisiana not have peaches? Like, it's not, we're not peach connoisseurs. Like, we don't
Right.
know, not once have I ever bitten a peach and been like, that, sir, is a high quality Georgia peach.
That's straight from the heart of Georgia.
Not once. And so I'm like, why are we doing this? And I can't, my wife still does not grasp this concept. Because she looks at it as, hey, we're already here. We might as well go a little bit out the way. Like, if we go on a road trip, it could be 12 hours. Hey, if we
Right.
go to this place, it's only 8 hours out of the way. Okay. So she doesn't grasp the concept in this case that, hey, the peaches were an hour and a half out of the way. That means you got to come back the hour and a half, too. So it's
Right.
3 hours to the
3
trip.
hours.
That's already 8.5 hours. So, we're
Right.
looking at an extensive little road trip here without air conditioning in
Right.
the middle of summertime.
Right.
On top my mother-in-law's in the car.
Yeah.
Y'all take that how you want.
Man math is not miles, it's time.
Right.
How much time
Right.
is this
That is
gonna take
11
out of
and
my
a
day?
half hours now.
Right.
That I've got
Right.
to spend in a car that I already don't want to be in. It's hot and sweaty.
Right.
And, of course, the trip back is always worse than the trip going anywhere.
Right.
And so that has always been the thing. I don't care where we schedule a road trip to. We'll have a plan. And I like setting plan. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Put a plan in motion. And then my wife will be like, oh, I found this place that is only this far out of the way.
Right, and your brain's like, why were you looking?
Right. Was this not good enough?
Right. Did you come up with reasons to
Is
piss
my
me
bank
off?
account different than, are you looking at a different
Right.
website than I am? Because that's not in the budget. But anyway, what I found was I'll get so miserable on stuff like that I don't enjoy the time that I'm there with her, and so that's been one of the things I've had to focus on changing is life is going to happen. The air conditioning is going to go out. My wife's obviously going to come up with a dumb idea on a road trip, and hey, that's the woman I married. That's what she enjoys, and so it's like I got to find a way to address accepting that as being the new norm, for lack of a better
Right.
term, and changing that. Hey, it don't have to be if you're going to do it, you don't have to be miserable. You can be happy, just happy as you're being miserable, I guess,
Right.
But it changes your mindset where, hey, you're not just there trying to get to the end of the thing. Just enjoy it while it's going on,
Right. It's that adage that I always tell you, enjoy your kids while they're small because they're not always going to be that little.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think as men we set the time aside to actually enjoy that stuff.
Right.
I think that we're so hyper focused on
We're objective driven.
right what's going to fail if we don't follow the same monotonous life conundrums to make everything function and move forward. We're basically gears in our own machine of life, and we get wrapped up around the axle on that. We're like, well, if I take this 5 minutes to do this, I still got time to do this, and everything for us is time based.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we realize, even if it's subconsciously, that time is all we have.
Right.
It is our most valuable resource, because if I give time to something, I can't get that time back, and we put a value on the time in the wrong place.
You start overscheduling.
Right, and then you once you get overscheduled, now you're not a pleasure to be around. So it's like, why don't they invite me to do stuff? Well, because you're an asshole.
Right.
And I don't
Right.
want to, not fun to be around.
You're not fun. Right.
And
You're the grumpy old guy. Nobody likes him.
right, and that's when we become, as we were talking about the other day, the fun dad, because it's like, you're gonna step away, you're gonna go grocery shopping, I'm gonna be at home with the kids. We're doing the dumbest stuff that I
Right.
know. When you walk in the door, why is there water all over this kitchen? Well, we had a water fight in the kitchen. Probably wasn't the smartest idea, but they're going to remember this for the rest of their
Right.
lives.
Right.
And like my ex used to get mad because I'd let my son ride his bike in the house. He was 3. The house was big enough. You know what
Right.
he's not going to do in the house? Get hit by a car. Like
Hopefully.
that's right. That's where my brain went, though. That's like, we're having fun, and these are the memories I'm making with them. But that's because to my brain, it's free.
Right.
I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to spend money to do it. I could do it all right here in the kitchen. I didn't have to put pants on.
Right.
I could stay in pajamas. So I think that we've got to start looking at ourselves through different lenses. When you're in the bathroom and you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're going, I'm starting to gain a little down in the midsection.
Little.
Or
Right,
I'm
chill out, guys.
losing a little up on the
Y'all
top.
took that 40 pounds joke way too far.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
So
But that's kind of where this is at. The devil that it's more of your own head trick. It's in your own brain.
well, when you take that back into account, look at going to work.
Right.
How many guys you work dead end jobs or it feels dead end? You're like, I can't stop now. I only got 10 more years till retirement.
Right.
You got a decade that you
Right.
could be doing something else. But also at the same time, let's say that abandoning the job that you've got is not necessarily the course of action. A lot of times we get so frustrated because, hey, we didn't get that promotion or whatever, some jackass got it or whatever, and he's never going to be as good as you are. We get it.
Yep,
we
all been there.
All been there. We've done that. Got that T-shirt, and so it's like I understand that. Hey, your supervisor may be dumb, not mine, but it's one of those things
I
where
like your supervisor.
right. But we've all been in that spot where it's like, why am I going to this job? That, hey, they don't they're not giving me a raise this year. They're not giving me that promotion, and I hate coming to work. The alarm clock goes off, and as soon as it goes off, I'm like, damn it,
Right.
And like we've all been there, you know. Sometimes you do have to walk away from the job. Like I had a job where, hey, I showed up and he's like, hey, I want you to clean up all these bottles people have been peeing in and dropping down from the stack that up in the refineries. I'm like, no, I won't.
Right.
And I rolled out. So that I get, hey, there's some jobs you got to roll away from. But also from the standpoint, hey, if I'm going to be the provider and offer stability for my family, obviously I don't need to be changing jobs every couple of weeks.
Right.
And so I understand the concept of staying somewhere and investing yourself in whatever company or agency that you work at. So I understand that. But what we run into is you just it becomes monotonous as you
Right.
and it's not. It's the more you do the same thing over and over and over and over, you're like, I'm an expert in this, and then you go from I'm an expert in this to I'm tired of doing this.
Right.
You know, and
Because you get bored.
You get bored.
Right.
And so that transitions into, rather than finding something fun at that same company or something that you enjoy, not fun, because I understand work is not always fun.
Right.
It's you get that same mindset where you're just like, I don't even know why I'm here. You know, like
Right.
I'm just a number or this or that, and that very well may be the case that you're just a number, but also at the same time you still bring value. You know, a lot
Right.
of guys get more respect at work than they do at their own house. You know?
110%.
And
In a little bit.
Where's Joe?
At dance.
and break. So I mean, a lot of guys get more respect at work than they do at home, and I think that also transitions into their home life where they're like, man, do I even count at home? You know,
Right.
Well, people aren't going to yell at you at work the way they are at home because HR departments exist.
Exactly.
Could you imagine if there was an HR department for spouses?
Bro.
Like,
Be a lot of fired wives.
right,
Just
a
saying.
lot of fired wives. Like, you know, hey, you can't make fun of me for
right.
you know putting on 15 pounds or 40 pounds.
Right.
Or,
It's
Shut up.
You get stuck in the brain trick. Well, like you're saying, you get bored because you get so good at it, but then you get that touch of arrogance where you're like, I'm not doing extra if you're not paying me extra.
Right.
And that's where work comes at you with that bogus
Uno
we're
reverse
family.
card.
Right. Put in this extra and we're going to promote you. And you're like, okay, bet. And you do that extra and then it's like, it's not enough.
Right.
And you're like, so I will say this, from being in the military for over 10 years and going into the civilian world and working, take that day off. Like, go when the opportunity comes up and your kids have a game or they have what are those things at school? The
Functions, field trips,
where they get on
Show and
stage
tell.
and they act.
plays.
That's the word. My brain skipped that one. Go call in sick, call in late. Be present for your children, because as we've said before, your job's going to replace you in 2 weeks.
Right.
It is what it is. The
Well,
day
you
you die.
bring the most value you bring is going to be to your family. You know,
Right.
And
Your presence is the value that you bring.
so I think the when we talk about the devil you know is going to be in your brain, that devil's the one saying, hey, you're not really that great. You
Right.
kind of suck at this. You know, you're a crappy dad. You know, you're a crappy father. You're at work. You're okay.
You're mediocre at being a husband or
I don't know
whatever.
how many times when you really look at. Honestly, I think any dad you go and you start talking to, if you say, "Hey man, how's everything going with your kids?" and you start having that in-depth conversation, they're all like, "Hey, I messed up. I shouldn't have done this as a dad, or shouldn't have done
Right.
that. If I could change it, I would have done. Said this or said that." We all have regrets as parents.
100%.
But too many times, that devil we know is what's saying, "Hey, you're garbage. Your kids would be better if there was a stepdad in place or something like that."
Right. Or
And-
it's too far
and-
gone. There's nothing you can do to bring
and
this
that's
back.
where because a lot of our conversations are like we're gearing towards something, and we're going deeper down the mental rabbit hole, for lack of a better term. But that's where a lot of guys start losing that battle, is
Right.
because they start listening to that little voice in them. Hey, you're kind of crappy.
Yeah.
They're disappointed in you.
Right.
I don't know how many times I've gone to the scenes where a dad has made that decision to step out into eternity, and it's because Christmas time is the worst. They didn't have the money to go buy Christmas
Right,
presents. Your
right.
kid doesn't care if he gets a PS5. Granted, he probably acts like he does, but he'd rather you be there.
Right.
If, obviously given the ultimatum, hey, you want PS5 or you want Daddy to be here, he's going to choose Daddy. You don't really give him that opportunity. He's going to be upset he didn't get to PlayStation because he didn't realize that was a choice.
Right.
But at the same time, at no point have I ever been to one of them scenes and everybody in the background be like, oh, I'm glad he's gone.
Right.
Not
No,
once.
not a single one.
once. and you know, it's always been, you know, the kids and the wife who's sitting there, and everything is rocked now.
Right.
You know, where we saw ourselves as not carrying value and not, you know, being a key or pivotal point of their life, they're now shattered, man.
Yeah.
And that's it's we're going to go down a rabbit hole in the next couple of episodes that you know you're going to have to prepare yourself for. You know, but you got to start looking at, hey, you do bring value, and there are people who
Right.
not only do they rely on you, they love you. You know,
Well,
and,
you've got to start actually introducing yourself to your family, because you can't continue the facade of I'm okay.
right.
You can't. You've got to show your spouse, you've got to show your kids that sometimes you're not okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to sit down and I know a lot of guys are gonna be like, no, I can't do it. I can't break down in front of my son and be a blubbering idiot. I can't let him see me weak. I can't. Yes, you can. You have got to do it, because if you feel alone right now, imagine where your son will be when he's in your shoes 20, 30 years from now, and he's going, well, I can't go to my dad. That's the strongest man I know. I can't show him I'm weak. I'll be a failure in my dad's eyes.
Right.
That's another list of my failures. You know, you've got to show them there's more to you than just this alpha male, I hate that term, you know, warfighter that just drives forward no matter what battles is going on and he's struggling with. You've got to put your facade down. You've got to go to your wife, and you've got to figure out a healthy way to say, honey, I love you to death. This is my problems. This is where I'm struggling. You know, I'm killing myself at work. I'm struggling to make these ends meet, and maybe she's aware of the financial burden. Maybe she's not. Maybe she's not a part of the finances. And we see it on TikTok and Facebook all the time. You know, the woman that's like, well, I want my man to take care of me, and I want this and this and this, but you make your own sandwich. You got to have a give and take. If your significant other is not bringing balance to the table, maybe it's time to reevaluate that. Address it appropriately. Don't come at it with hostility and anger. Come at it appropriately and say, this is where my struggles are. And if she's not willing to go pick up dog shit with you, it's time to find a different partner.
Well, one thing that I've seen is, like with my wife, is there's been moments where I've had to go to her and, hey, I'm not at meeting her 50-50 in a relationship.
Right.
Because I'm tired, or I've got, you know, whatever going on, and sometimes I'm at 10% and she's carrying the 90.
Yeah.
But I will give it to her. I will give it to her this, and I don't think, I love her to death, but I don't think she's unique in the aspect that when you get the wife that cares for you, that, hey, you know, y'all had the beach wedding or whatever, or whether it be, you know, fancy wedding, or you're going to the justice of the peace, you still made a decision to spend your life with each other.
Right, you took that vow.
You still took the vows of, hey, for better, for worse, you know, rich or poor, you know, and all the rest of it that we don't listen to. You still took those vows, and she took them too. And not once have I gone to my wife and said, hey, look, this is what I got going on. You know, or, you know, being in a weak spot, and her be like, suck it up. You know,
Right.
not once has she called me a wuss. Not once has she been displayed a single ounce of disappointment.
Right.
You know, it was a lot of time it was in my head, because I was embarrassed about
Yeah.
how I was acting in front of her. You
Yeah.
know, and I was like, hey, you know, this is not me. You know, whatever. No, this is life. You know, you don't get to ride on top of the horse the whole time. And
Yeah.
and I hate saying, so long in my life I spent that time saying, hey, look, I can't break down in front of my wife. I can't let them see me struggle. You know, like that adage, hey, they'd rather see, you know, my family would rather see me die on the horse than see me struggle. That's not a true, that's a misconception.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't communicate with your wife where she's the only one who ever brings you problems. You got to bring the problems to her too.
Yeah.
You know, and what I don't want my son to think is that I'm infallible, because if he finds out now that I'm not perfect, when he becomes, you know, an adult, you know, and you know, he's in his 20s, when he does see that I'm fallible, it's not as big of a shock, if that makes sense. Because I think that's
Right.
where we run into, is we put our dads in such high esteem positions, you know, because hey, they can't mess up. They're Superman. They're this and that. And when you get into being an adult, you're like, okay, maybe he doesn't have it all together.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, he's dumb.
Dude,
Like, he's done some dumb stuff. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's he's had to mask that from you.
Right.
And now you get to see it because hey, you're an adult. You comprehend things differently, and you're able to see that. Well, now you disappoint him if you do that as you know from when he's a kid. He sees that hey, I don't have it all together. You know, I want my son to know that hey, I don't have all the answers all the time. You know, this isn't like some military, you know, submarine captain or whatever where I've got to have answers even when I don't. You know, it's
Fake it till you make it. Yeah.
yeah, you know, it's let him see that hey, I don't have all the answers, but I'm working through it. I'm trying to find a solution, trying to see how to solve the problem we call life, and let him be a part of that. And so that'll change how he lives his life. You know,
and that's I mean I look at my 8-year-old now, and like we were saying earlier, you know, they pick up on it. They know when something's not right. And my 8-year-old, I mean that kid's spot on. He knows when Dad's at a hard spot. And he'll ask me, like, Dad, you okay? And I tell him now, like, I'll tell him, like, no, I'm dealing with some stuff, but we'll figure it out.
right.
And I tell him that because he's 8, and I'm not putting
Right.
world
You
problems
can't put
on
the
him.
world problems on him.
Right. But
But it also it shows that he's in tune to what's going on.
right. But I let him know, like, no, I'm not okay, but we're gonna figure it out because that's my job to do is to figure it out. And that's not a masculine thing. That's I have a job to do, and that job is to figure out the problem and make everything okay. But at the same time, I'm learning. I've got to show him that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to figure out your problem and try to work through that problem. And I love him to death. He can be super sweet sometimes because his response the other day was, "Can I help?" And I was like, "Absolutely. You can go clean up to your playroom."
No, that's not what I meant.
Right. And he's like, But I also noticed that evening, a couple hours later, when we're getting ready for bed, and you know I'm laying in my bed, and he came in my room, and he kind of curled up next to me, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Just snuggling a little bit," and I'm like, "Okay." Like, and I get it. That's his way. That's his solution. He knows when he's not okay, a hug or a little cuddle in bed or something like that makes him feel a little better, and that's how he knows how to solve a problem.
Right.
And so for me, it's teaching him that empathy to others and seeing when there's a problem, ask the question.
Right.
You okay? Because if all I ever tell him is, yeah, I'm good, we're good, go away. You know, it
Scram, kid.
it teaches him to hide those emotions. It teaches him that, you know, we're men and we're not supposed to have feelings, and that's a bullshit answer. I don't care what level of masculine you are. I don't care what stage you are in your life. I don't care if you're the president of the United States. I don't care if you're, you know, Conor McGregor. At some point in your life, you were at the bottom.
Right.
At some point in your life, you have felt like you were a loser. You felt like you couldn't win. You felt like nothing you did was right. At some point. And a lot of guys have used that as a pivot point to make that change and become a better person.
Right.
And
well, some of them, you know, and that's what we're battling is become such a constant.
Right.
That's the devil that they know, and they don't, you know, they miss the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know?
And well, I mean, you face such backlash and retaliation, and some of it is in your own mind. It's what's in your brain telling you, I can't tell my boss I'm not mentally okay. I can't tell my buddy I'm not mentally okay. I can't tell my wife I'm not mentally okay. That's partially in your brain, but it's also society at this point. Because if you know you fear telling your spouse your problems because you fear your spouse telling her best friend and her best friend and her best friend. Because let's face it, women go to a panel of women, and when they have an issue at home or they have an issue in their relationships or whatever, they go to their 5 best friends, and not bashing women, but the 5 best friends are like, oh, leave him, girl. He's worthless. He's a bum. He lost his job. He's, not great with the kids, or he doesn't help here and there and there.
He would have got that promotion if he wasn't lazy.
Right. And so
something stupid like that.
They plant that seed, and that's why, as for me, I always suggested to my ex, go to your mom. I know your mom's not going to like me regardless because I'm taking away her daughter. Go to your mom. Go have a conversation with your mom And when you come back, we can discuss it. But I was adamant. Stop talking to your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Stop going to these people that are going to give you the advice that says,
Right.
end your relationship, cheat on him, go be a piece of shit.
Right.
Because that's you're going to a bad place to get bad seeds planted in your head to justify your bad actions. Whereas as men, we're afraid that if I open up and I disclose something to somebody else, they're going to look at me bad. Because I'm not going to them saying, oh, my wife does this, she does this, she does this, she does this. I'm going to them going, man, this is what I'm dealing with. This is where my problem is. And you don't want that negative review, that negative feedback. Because as a man, if I go to you and go, man, my wife can't stop cheating on me, the first thought that I think they're going to have.
There?
Right. Like, why are you still there? Or what are you doing wrong? Or are you inadequate as a sex partner? Are you inadequate as a man? Does she view you as a piece of shit? Or does she not even see value in you? And sometimes, let's be honest, the truth is she's a piece of shit. There's nothing you can do about it. Or maybe those are things that are going on. Maybe you're not romantically the best. Or maybe you lack the emotional connection she's looking for. And the jackass in Facebook Messenger has all the right answers for the moment. But I can tell you right now, very rarely does a cheating circumstance ever work out.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it fizzles out because you can't build a house on the tears of a former lover. And that's essentially what, anyway.
I feel like you read that somewhere. You didn't make that up.
I probably did. It was probably on Facebook. I don't know.
Yeah.
But not to get on the soapbox, social media has killed relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It has opened up too many doors for too many people who are pieces of shit to step into your marriage or step into your love life or step into your business and share it around.
And you get the wrong advice.
Right. And I will tell you as your friend, I've never once gone back to your spouse or viewed your spouse in another light because, number one, she's never done anything for me to look down on her. But that is a bond. We have a trust here that whatever you tell me, whether you are angry at your wife or madly in love with her, no matter what information you give to me, it stops right here.
Mm-hmm.
It does not go any further. I don't tell our other friends about it. I don't come back to you later and make a joke about it, unless it's something funny, like us almost dying on your roof. It's a trust, and we don't normalize that. That's the biggest thing, is that we've got to normalize valuing ourselves and finding a confidant that we can have these open communicative conversations with.
Right.
And like my biggest takeaway for our podcast is I want the average everyday guy out there to see us two jackasses sitting right here talking about the things that you can listen to and go, I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly how you feel. But at the same time, I want you to ask yourself, would you have these conversations with somebody else? Would you go to somebody else and tell them, I'm not okay. I'm not mentally right. Would you be willing to make that bond with somebody else to prevent yourself from going down the unreturnable road?
Right.
And we're intentionally not saying it because of, banning and all of that stuff. But it's a tough pill to swallow. It is a generational stereotype that has been built up that we as men can't communicate emotionally, and we can't be anything other than this white knight who has to fight every battle and take on the obligations of our loved ones and our wives and our children and be this massive protector. You can be that protector, and you can still feel. You can still open your mouth and say,
Right.
This doesn't feel right. I'm getting the short end of the stick. There's nothing wrong with every now and then saying, honey, I'd like to be the little spoon. It's see what I mean? Like, I'm not bagging on Mike, but his immediate thought was to laugh at it, because as men, that's what we do. We make fun of that insecurity and that vulnerability, but as a man, there are times we need to feel that affection. We need to feel that we're allowed to be vulnerable.
Right.
I want to stand in my kitchen after a shitty day, and I want a woman who's going to see me and see my body language, see my facial expression, hear in the tone of my voice without me actually having to communicate. I had a shitty day, and just hold me and let me know that's my rock. This is my safe place. Is it's not the home itself, it's in that person's arms. It's we as men have got to start communicating and start looking at our own value and saying, if the person that we're with, do they see that same value? And if not, can we build that value back in their eyes?
Right.
And if you can't build that value, if you can't get a legitimate 50-50 relationship of both emotional, financial, and spiritual, and any other category you can think of, if you can't get that 50%, you've got to reevaluate and find it somewhere else. Otherwise, you're going to be 60, 70 years old with 2 dogs living in a shotgun shack, wondering where you went wrong in life. Right. And still working that dead-end job to buy bread and cheese and dog food, and I'm not knocking anybody that's there at this point in their life. It's not too late. That's my other big thing. It's not too late. You can make a change. There are 80, 90-year-old men out there getting married right now. Some of them to 20-year-old women, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
right. So I kind of went on a deep-end tangent there, but to tie it all together, start evaluating yourself and start pushing that into your relationships and everything else. And there's nothing wrong with a self-help book. If you can YouTube how to fix the dryer, how to change your brake pads, you can YouTube how to look into yourself. You can look up a book on how to take back control of your own life,
right,
and go from there. And I'm not saying take a midlife crisis and get a new wife, a new car, and a new house. I'm not suggesting that.
Typically, there's other answers there.
Right. Try to fix your home before you look for a new one.
Right. So, guys, appreciate y'all listening to us today. Chicks, if y'all are listening, we're not worried about y'all.
He's kidding.
So, appreciate y'all taking a moment and listening to this episode. If you found that this was helpful, that you think that this is valuable information, let us know. Hit that, all the podcast stuff. I'm not going to keep repeating them. Shoot us an email. We're really excited about those.
Please.
We might even keep a tally on, are we getting more emails from guys or girls?
Right.
So far the girls are winning.
I do want to point out a shout out to our 3 big followers. We're not going to say last names on the Facebook. I'm sure if you go look, you'll find them. Excuse me. But a big shout out to a Miss Brittany, a Miss Gina, and a Miss Tina for following and liking everything else. I'd like to say some guy names, but
y'all are slacking.
We don't have any.
So, guys, we appreciate y'all taking a moment and listening to this episode. Send us an email. It's coffeeandthebull at yahoo.com. For now, we're going to say toodaloo.
So stupid with this toodaloo.